Welcome to Invisible Strings, where we tug at the little threads that hold our lives together. From mental health and relationships to marriage, motherhood, and all the beautiful chaos in between. I'm Katie, your guide to navigating life's tangled web, one string at a time. Think of this as your weekly dose of insight, sprinkled with a bit of laughter, some heartfelt chats, and maybe even a happy tear or two. So, whether you're juggling a million things or you just need a break, let's untangle life together, because those invisible strings, they're what keep us connected. This is Invisible Strings. Let's get started. Today, I have the absolute joy of welcoming someone who embodies everything Shine stands for. Jules Bosi is the CEO and founder of Shine Teens. She's a passionate leader and truly the brightest light in every room she walks into. Her heart for teens, her wisdom, and her unwavering kindness make her not only an incredible advocate for young people, but also a dear friend of mine. I can't wait for you all to hear from her today. Jules, welcome to Invisible Strings.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome to the studio. I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Have been so excited. Well, first of all, when I started telling you about this podcast months ago, like almost a year ago, I kind of told it to you as like I just said it off the cuff kind of. Like I'd been thinking about it for a year before then. And you're like, oh, this is amazing. Tell me more about this podcast that you're about to do.
Like it was real. It was
like it was already happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I mean, this is what I think I want to do. And you're like, that's amazing. I'm so excited for you to do this. And then we must have met somebody and you introduced me. And you're like, this is Katie. She's starting a podcast. And I was like,
now I have to do it.
Oh my gosh. And you just poured into me, that poured into this podcast. Really, I had been talking about it for 2 years. And I think you were probably like, everyone's always like, that's so cool. Yeah. That's going to be amazing. We need that. Please start it. Let me know when you start it. But it was something different with you. And so having you on is so special.
Are you going to cry?
Maybe. Are you going to cry?
Definitely.
Okay. It's so special. And our meeting really was so divinely orchestrated. For everybody out there, our meeting was so crazy. And I feel like when you stop and slow down, and that didn't happen for me until we moved to North Carolina because there was so much noise up north. One night, probably in August, was it August of last year, I was online at 12 o'clock in the morning, probably scrolling because I couldn't fall asleep because I was online. And I come across this girl who I'm friends with who had just done an event with you for Shine. And I'm like, what's Shine? And who is this girl? She is gorgeous. Oh my gosh. And you were speaking, and it was maybe your exercise events. And I then Googled, well, what did I do? I probably went to the Instagram and I'm like,
started following us.
Yeah, immediately. Like at 12:30 in the morning. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, this reminds me so much of Erica's Lighthouse, but it's just for girls and teens. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And you were like the brightest, most sparkly light. And I was like, I have to get to know this person. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I have to get to know her. Okay. So fast forward, we wake up in the morning, we go to church. And after church, our friend Jimmy Wade, who is sitting in front of us, turns around and starts talking to us. I start talking about Erica's Lighthouse to him. And he's like, okay, hold your thought there. I've got someone you need to meet right now. Let's do it. And we get out there and he taps you on the shoulder and you turn around and I'm like, be cool, Katie. Be cool. This girl is so cool. Be cool. And you're like, hi. And Olivia and Whitney were with me, right?
Just Olivia.
Oh, just
Whitney.
Olivia. I had taken her to Zach Bryan. And so Olivia's with me, and Olivia probably has just as big of a smile on her face as I did. And I thought there was an instant connection, but I was also trying to be really cool because you were cool.
Which is hilarious because never in the history of me describing myself or hearing anybody else ever describe me has cool been one of the adjectives that has been used. And I remember that experience so vividly. It was like time slowed down. And I thought that you and Olivia were the two teenage girls that Jimmy was.
Wait,
Jimmy
what?
was. Yeah. He was like, I want you to meet these girls for Shine Teens. And I was like, great, love this.
And I was the mom.
And yes.
I was the mom.
Yeah.
And I just remember we talked for a a little bit of time.
Yeah, we were fellowshipping, like the entire church
Yeah.
poured out and we were still
Yes.
standing there talking.
Okay, that's right. Did we exchange phone numbers then? Like, I don't remember, but somehow we got each other's phone numbers and we started texting, which very quickly led to 1 minute long or less, maybe, voice messages that then led to 25-minute long voice messages.
Yeah, I don't even know how they send. They're so long.
And then sometimes I leave mine, and then it says 000 at the end of it. And I'm like, that was 13 minutes. And I just can't re-record that again.
Yeah.
I did that 5 times last night.
Yeah.
Literally. I'm like, no, that doesn't sound good. I need to do new. And then that was, I don't even know. Like, because I just felt like that one chunk of time, like August through maybe December, was so heavy for me during that time. I was in the job I was so unhappy with, in a house I did not want to be living in, and just some rocky relationships. And I just felt like, but you were there the whole time and we were talking the whole time.
Yeah, it was as though we just met, but we had always known each other.
Yeah.
That's how it felt for me.
I know.
So you're not just on your own in this. It was definitely mutual. And I think that you opened up to me really quickly and let me in really quickly. And so we just developed a very honest, authentic relationship early on.
It was.
Which is rare. It's rare, right?
Yes.
I think it's very easy to walk around and sort of have this veneer and smile and meet people. But I think that we are designed to crave deep relationships. So that's what we have now.
It was such a cool, meeting. The connector of all connectors, Jimmy Wade, who just.
I thought you meant God.
God is the ultimate connector of all connectors, but here on earth, Jimmy Wade is the connector of all connectors. And I'm just so thankful for him. And I know he listens. So thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Jimmy Wade.
Thank you, Jimmy Wade. That's a good name. And Pat and very much Patty. Yes. Yeah. So you have not always lived in North Carolina. You moved here from New York City, Staten Island or Long Island?
Staten Island.
Because there's a difference, right? Okay. I don't know the difference. I just know that if you're from one, you're from one. And if you're from the other, you're from the other. And you don't crisscross. We don't mix it up. Staten Island. Okay. And isn't that where that movie, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days?
Yes. And does everyone tell you look like Kate Hudson?
Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
You do.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I get that yellow dress?
Love it. Yellow. It's the best dress.
Olivia wants it for homecoming or prom. And I'm like,
she's brunette now.
But it's a little, did I say Whitney? Yeah. I meant Olivia. It's a little bit too low in the back for my liking. We're not, thank you. Okay. So New York City, Staten Island, you have been married for 12 years to Francesca
Luciano Giuseppe Bosi. No,
he basically looks like Jesus.
He's going to love this.
We love Frank so much. And your 2 beautiful children.
So Brayden is 9. He'll be 10 this summer. And Brinley is 5.5. She always includes the and a half. She's in her and a half era.
Oh, so if she's almost 6, are we still talking 5.5?
Yeah. Okay. She's really more like 5 3/4, but she turned 6 this month.
Okay.
Actually. But she still loves to say that she's 5.5.
Well, I'm 43.5.
There you go. Own it. So going back, I met Frank in college in Delaware, and we're both from New York. He's from Brooklyn and I'm from Staten Island. And so we met in Delaware, and then we went back to New York afterwards. And then I went from undergrad to grad school and was on a very linear path to become a therapist. And so I went straight to get my master's degree. I thought, life is moving on exactly as I thought it was going to. And I had this checklist of different milestones at different points in my life that I was going to meet, and everything was happening exactly as I had planned. And I was in grad school at Columbia in New York City. And then Frank and I got engaged. We got married, still in the New York City area. Actually, we were in Hoboken, which was right across the river. And it was Frank and me and Brayden, and we were in an 1,100 square foot apartment, but that's all we needed because we didn't really spend a lot of time at home because we worked all the time. And so I worked in a law firm that was around the Wall Street area, and Frank worked in the hotel industry in Times Square. So, okay, I guess I should say I was trained to become a therapist. I had a quarter life crisis. I was like, this is not actually what I am supposed to be doing. And I never considered any other path. And so then,
but how did you know that wasn't what you were supposed to be doing?
Okay. I lost myself in it. I got into the world of social work because I wanted to help people. And when you're in that world, you have to be able to kind of desensitize yourself. So have empathy, but also desensitize yourself. And I couldn't do that. I got really emotionally attached to the folks that I was around and was very deeply attuned to how broken our systems are, and was young and thought I'm in over my head. I had what I thought was the gold standard in training, was wholly unprepared, not at all trained for what I was experiencing. And so I was probably, I don't know, 25 years old and was like, I don't think this is for me. And then a friend got me this temp job at a law firm. And so I was like, I am going to do my best possible role at this law firm. I know nothing about big law. And that was a whole other experience, but that's where I worked. And I very much felt like I had all of my eggs in the basket of being a therapist. And so then when I switched to a different career, I thought, I'm not going to mess this up. I very much had imposter syndrome, was with really well educated, very cultured folks from all over who I loved being around. And my role, as I was in the professional development department, so I helped the lawyers basically become better lawyers. And so I loved that. And I worked really hard, harder than I probably should have worked or was expected of me. Made some really great connections. And then I couldn't stop. I was sort of on this cycle. And so I was kind of working hours that, not the hours that the lawyers were working, but it was very much culturally normative to glorify the grind. You work around the clock, you take a black car at home at night. And it wasn't for me about status or image. I could see how it would seem that way. But for me, it was like, I could see how busy everybody was. And my role was to be a helper. And so I kept seeing people who were busy and stressed. And I kept saying, I'll do it. I'll handle it. I can do it. And so I was there. Does that sound like me still?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Weird.
And we can talk about patterns because everybody has patterns. And that is my pattern that started when I was a child.
Yep.
And so it has replicated itself in pretty much every single setting that I've been in. And so it very much happened at the law firm. And so I didn't want to let anybody down.
Yep.
And so I worked a lot. I remember getting home late and Brayden being just little. And it was like, I didn't get to see him go to sleep every night. And I just didn't get to see him that much. And I remember saying to Frank, this can't be what life is supposed to be. Like, this can't be all that life is. We're in theory successful, but I feel like we're not actually living. Like, we're alive, but we're not living. Or maybe we're living, but we're not alive, you know? Like, we're just doing it. It's transactional. You do this, we do. It didn't feel like what we were supposed to do. And so I just kept feeling like we need to get out of here because I can't be here and sustain this. And I can't change my patterns here because I can't let everybody down. So we just need to get out of here. And at the same time, Frank was thriving in his career and he was in the hotel industry. So it was like
in New York City,
there are hotels all over the world.
Yeah.
So let me just let folks know that I'm open to other opportunities. And that's what brought us to the South.
So I think that probably if you talk to most people that move down here from the North, they're going to have like a similar story where it just wasn't sustainable. And I bet you everybody, if they would just think back to it, because as you said it, I was like, I have thought to myself, especially when I was up in Chicago, like, what are we doing here? Like, just not the actual location, but on Earth. Like, we're here to work, to live, to work, to retire at 70 and maybe hopefully not die right away, but just work to save all this money to send our kids to overpriced colleges. And it didn't, as you said that, I was just thinking like, literally had the same thought. And maybe I even still had that thought when we lived down here because I just didn't know what the reason was. We're just here to just like work and struggle. And this is crazy. And I think that a lot of people that have moved down from a place up north would say that they had the same feelings and they came down here. And I think we all probably took a gigantic breath of air and breathed out once we got down here. Like driving in here in April to there being leaves on the trees and it being 65 degrees, we had left Chicago and there was snow on the ground.
It's like paradise, except for the allergies. Backtracking a little bit more, we we didn't have anybody that lived in the South. We didn't have any reason to necessarily go to the South. And so I literally remember Googling, what's a good place in the South to raise a family? And it was wildly not inappropriate, just naive, I think, for me to just Google and make these big life decisions. But it almost was surreal. Like I just felt this internal stirring of, you need to get out of here. You need to go down South and lay down some roots. Like I literally remember being like, I want to lay down some roots.
Yes. And it only sounds possible to do that in the South.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like the country music. Like
yes.
some land and
I
some
love
roots.
country
And I know.
Yeah.
Me too.
And so when we looked, what's a good place in the South to raise a family? And then Valentine. North Carolina came up, was one of the places. And Frank was in the hotel industry working with folks who worked in corporate America. So there was a lot of back and forth between Charlotte and New York City. So he's like, oh, Charlotte, I've heard so much about Charlotte. Let's set our sights on Charlotte. And so we narrowed it down. It was like, what's a good place in Charlotte to raise a family? And then Valentine came up. And I remember that it rhymed with Valentine. So it like stuck in my mind. First role he gets is at the Valentine Hotel. And so I said, trust the universe. Trust the universe. Everything is working out exactly as it's supposed to. And at that point, we had 2 kids. So Brinley was born. She was probably 4 months old. She was little. And so
in the height of her diva era.
She was born a diva.
She was born a diva.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here in a pink jumpsuit, so I don't know where she gets it from.
I have no idea.
But
it's crazy.
But she was a colicky baby. She wasn't sleeping well. She had like tongue tie. Everything. She just had everything. And so we were also in this 1,100 square foot apartment with neighbors and paper thin, walls. And so I felt like we have to get out of here. Like there was my skin was crawling. We needed to have some more space. And this was pre-COVID.
That's
the
right.
houses here were very affordable.
Very affordable. Yeah.
And I remember coming here and being like, I'm sorry, what? We can live in a house like this? So we moved here. And actually Frank's role at the Valentine Hotel made that very easy for us to move. It was wonderful. He was in the Valentine magazine. I mean, everything was just falling into place.
Right.
We moved into our house. And right as that happened, Frank was laid off because of COVID. And the hotel industry, because COVID,
disappeared.
And he was in business travel sales. And so there was no business travel because of COVID. And so, looking back, it served its purpose. It brought us here.
Yeah.
And it was so easy. It was sort of, Valentine is on your radar. Here's the Valentine Hotel. Here, move in. And as soon as we actually signed on the dotted line and moved in, he lost his job. And nobody could have expected that.
No.
Predicted it.
Okay, so you guys moved here, lost his job because of COVID.
Yeah.
So you jump on the internet and you're like, we got to find insurance. We have 2 kids. We got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Yeah. So we then heard about a Christian health share. It is called Samaritan Ministries. And essentially what you do is every month you put a certain amount of money into a pot.
Yeah.
And when somebody has a medical bill, you have an opportunity to pray for them, write them a note of prayer and encouragement, and then take whatever it is, $30, whatever they ask you from, out of that pot that you already have set aside to help them pay for their bill. And that was wildly different than anything I had ever experienced with insurance.
Yeah.
And most of the insurance providers that we were seeing didn't take insurance anyway, because we do things pretty holistically.
Yep.
So we were worried about spending a lot of money on Cobra for traditional insurance and then spending more money on like alternative providers.
Yeah.
And so Samaritan Ministries made sense. Frank called them and he was like, Jules, these people are so nice. They're so kind. They were so encouraging with everything that's going on with my layoff. And I think we should do it. The only thing is that we have to join a church. And I thought, okay, how do you find a church? Let's do it. And Frank was raised Catholic and went to an all boys Catholic school. And I was raised Jewish, but we just didn't do religion because
it was cultural.
It was cultural.
Yeah.
It was not as biblical or scriptural, and it was cultural. And I thought, well, but we can go to a church. And he was like, yeah, or we can just say we're doing it. And I was like, no, if we're actually going to be doing this, we should do it. And so we thought, now we have to find a church. Days later, our neighbor stopped by and said, welcome to the neighborhood. And we started talking to them. And they said, we're all getting together in this neighborhood to go to a worship event. Would you like to join us? And I was like, what's a worship event? And she smiled and she said, well, it's where we worship the Lord. And I said, well, where is it? And she said, it's at Forest Hill Church. And I said, great, we're looking for a church. We'll be there.
So you go to the worship night. If you have never been to a worship night before, I invite you to come and try not to feel the Holy Spirit, because it feels pretty much impossible to not be overcome with emotion. I feel like it's really hard to not be overcome by emotion when you're in a worship night, when you're surrounded by people who are these deep believers of Jesus. And I remember someone said to me a couple weeks ago, I started crying during church and I don't know what that was. And I'm like, that's the Holy Spirit literally moving through your body. I can envision you standing there and like people are worshiping like we were a couple weeks ago. And you're like, what is going on right now?
Yeah.
Like, did you feel it immediately? Because you're not a judger. So you're probably not like, why do people have their hands in the air? What is happening right now?
Yeah.
Why are people crying?
That's a really powerful observation, because I really am not somebody who judges. I think that actually relates a lot to my coach training, where your brain can't hold judgment and curiosity at the same time. And so the whole training is about navigating life with curiosity. And I was really curious about what was going on. And I wasn't searching for anything beyond being able to get a rubber stamp so that I could get our insurance. And what I experienced blew me away. So it was actually pouring out, not in the beginning of the night. It was outside because of COVID.
Right.
And so it was in the parking lot. And Brinley was under a year. And we were unprepared because we didn't know what to bring. And so we didn't have chairs or anything to carry her on. And I remember we got there and somebody said, hey, notice you don't have chairs. Do you want some chairs? And I was like, why are these people being so nice to us? I think I had my guard up.
Totally.
But they offered us a chair. We said, no, thank you. And then a little while later, they saw that we were still struggling and they said, here, we're just going to set these out for you. And then it started raining. And instead of people being frustrated that it was raining, they were jumping up and down. They were just like, rain was pouring everywhere.
That sounds amazing.
It was incredible. And I was like, I had never read the Bible, but I read people.
Yeah.
And there was something different about these people. Yeah. And I know enough about people to know that it wasn't just that all of these people had wonderful lives and they were just happy all the time, because it can look like that.
Yeah.
To the unbeliever who doesn't really have a relationship with God, who gets very easily impacted by things in the moment without being able to stretch into eternity and see, okay, this is just a blip on the radar. Even life under the sun is so temporary. It's very hard to then look at these people who are so filled with joy. Are you guys about to cry right now? You are. It's incredible, because it's very easy to look and say, well, they just must have it easy. And it's wrong. It's not the truth. It's that a believer is not as swept around and swept away by their circumstances because they're not trusting the universe. They realize that the universe is a creation and they're trusting our creator, and they understand that we are creation and they are part of something bigger.
So it's not that things are easier. No. Bad things happen all the time.
All the time.
It's just that you can see God's hand in it. Mm-hmm. You know that it's there and you're like, what are you showing me?
Yeah.
What do I need to change? What do I need to do? Maybe it's just that you need to fall to your knees and literally give up the control that you're trying to have on whatever the situation is. So you went to this amazing worship night where it poured rain on your entire family. And you were like, I need to understand this. Your curiosity was like, I need to understand this more.
Because it's a really good mindset management technique.
It's amazing.
I
Actually.
still in that moment thought, well, this is better than coaching.
For sure.
And I would love to understand how they are managing the stressors that they're navigating. And so I wasn't a believer, but I was intrigued.
Calling from God to start working with young girls at the same time. Okay. So you have gone through, you now have insurance, right? Because you now have a church. So you're going for 3 years and then you got baptized.
Yeah.
You needed to understand the full spectrum. You are good at just jumping in though. Because that's the same as me. Like you look for a place online, you're like, okay, we're going to move here. And then God is like, here is a job for Frank.
Sometimes I feel like it's an out of body experience.
I know.
Because I actually am who I am. If you knew me before my faith journey, you wouldn't say that actually. You would say that I was very indecisive, would never speak up in meetings. I was very afraid of making wrong choices, was
a perfectionist.
And I'm a recovering perfectionist now.
Yeah.
But the times when we made these very decisive choices kind of feel like an out of body experience. And so I got to a place of believing that the Bible is not a relative truth, that the Bible is an absolute truth that is breathed out by God. And the authority of the Bible comes from the author, which are the first few letters of the word authority, because it's God's word.
Yeah.
And actually, I guess I should sort of also say it wasn't just this. There was a lot of things happening at the same time. And if you ever speak to anybody about their testimony, you will see that seeds were planted and seeds were planted. And all of a sudden, if you had a bird's eye view, you would see that this person was placed in this person's life. And this person chose to take a walk with this person. And this person chose to invest in this person. And all of these, the culmination of all of these different constellation of factors also involved the Lord literally speaking to our family in ways that defied logic and reason. And so this is really what changed everything for me. Was when everything was happening with COVID, Frank was laid off. I was still working through my LLC as a coach. And then my contract was cut. And so we went from not having insurance, but still having a steady flow of income to literally getting emails from our bank saying, you have $0 in your bank account. And it was a really dark and scary time for us. And I didn't see a way out. Logically, there was no way out because Frank's entire career was in the hotel industry. And so there were no hotels that were hiring. And my role was in investing in folks in businesses, and businesses were not looking to spend money on what they would see as extra, So I didn't see a way out logically. And our oldest child was in kindergarten. He was in the public school and he was mostly remote learning or mostly doing remote learning.
Yeah.
And when he was in school, he was masked and he wasn't fazed by that. But that actually kind of concerned me that he wasn't fazed by it because he was so little and he was just kind of going with the flow. He would get rashes on his face. And I was like, we can't live like this. And he was coming home anxious for going to Forest Hill. And they said, we are going to open a school at this church. And it's going to be a small environment. It's going to be more controlled. And I told my parents about it. And they said, we'll pay for Braden to go to school there. And I said, okay, but it's a church, right? And they said, as long as you're happy and safe, that's all that matters.
So your Jewish parents from Staten Island are paying for their grandchildren to go to a Christian elementary school in North Carolina.
Yeah, because they just
trust you.
Yes. And there are other layers of complexity there, which is that my only sibling, my brother, Jesse, has autism and he's nonverbal and he lives with them. So
he hasn't always been nonverbal though.
Yeah. That's another podcast topic. But I think for them, their grandchildren that's everything to them. They're not going to have other grandchildren.
Right.
And so they were scared too.
Yeah.
And so I didn't grow up with ever having money, but they saved a lot. And so I was like, wait, I'm sorry, you can afford to pay for Braden to go to a private school? And they said yes. And so they did. And Braden started going to this school. And so I think this is important because also in everyone's testimony, there's these constellation of factors and things falling into place And then something really personal usually happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened for us.
Yeah.
So right when my contract was cut, I was crying in our kitchen, and Brinley, who was 2 at the time, 2.5, because she, even back then, was big on her halves.
But hardly putting together sentences.
Hardly
right?
putting together sentences. Yes. She was 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
So she looked at me and she said, Mommy, trust in the Lord with all your heart. And Braden was sitting there, and Braden looked at me and I looked at him, and he said, Mommy, that's a Bible verse. Still, I had never read the Bible. And I said, well, how does she know it? It defied logic and reason. It didn't make any sense. And he said, well, I learned it at school. Maybe she heard me saying it because they were having the kids learn scripture. But I look back at videos from that time, and she would say pameo instead of tomato. Like, she wasn't articulating sentences.
Yeah.
She was 2.
Right.
And the very next day, that was on a Wednesday, the very next day, Frank and I had nothing to do because we both had no job. And they had a prayer group at this school that had just been established. It was the first year. And we knew that on Thursdays they had prayer group. And so I was like, let's go to prayer group. We could use some of this, like, positive energy. That's what I thought prayer was, positive energy. And so we go there, and it's a whole bunch of women, and me and Francesca, Greg. And he was the only man. And the woman who runs this group, it was the first time he had ever been there because previously I was working on Thursdays. And the woman who runs this group pulls out this agenda, and she says, today we're going to speak about how God meets us where we are and finds ways to reach us where he knows we will be paying attention, including through speaking through our children. And I thought, am I being punked? How is this possible that my 2-year-old spoke scripture to me yesterday, and then today they're saying that God will find ways to reach you where he knows you'll be paying attention, including through speaking through your children? And I broke down. I mean, just hysterics, crying. I think Frank started crying, and these women just embraced me, and they embraced him. And they were like, God's trying to reach you. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're God. Like, I still was like, I don't know. And I think part of why I wrestled so much is that I was Jewish. As far as I was concerned, Jesus was a false idol. And so I didn't have negative feelings about Jesus. He just wasn't
the Messiah.
I wasn't going to,
No.
And I now look back and I see that wasn't the first time he tried to reach us, and it wasn't the last time he's tried to reach us. God doesn't have to do this, but he has sent me and others in our family, but really maybe because I'm aware of it and my eyes are open to it now, he has sent me so many personalized reminders of his presence in my life that it's very hard to be like, oh yeah, this is just a figment of my imagination. When you are Jewish, you have this ability to go to Israel for free. And so when I was 21 years old, I think that's how old I was.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at remembering time.
It probably was.
It was in the summer.
All my friends.
I went to Israel, and I went with 2 of my best friends, and we had the time of our life. And I was literally in the room where Jesus is said to have had the Last Supper, which, by the way, is a Passover meal. And I also could not understand why there were so many people wearing crosses in Israel, because I thought, well, isn't this the Jewish place? They're trying to persecute us here too, because that's, my belief system is that is based on a lot of reality. There has been a tremendous amount of persecution. And so I just thought, part of my wrestling was, am I just assimilating into this Bible Belt where I live now? And I'm not that way. There's a lot of things in my life where I am the only one who doesn't do X. Not someone who necessarily follows the crowd. I was always the kid when I was younger who sat with the child who nobody else wanted to sit with. I was not the person who followed what everybody else was doing.
You're a leader.
I couldn't see it then. I actually think now we're all leaders. I think we all have the ability to lead ourselves and the ability to lead others in powerful and purposeful ways. And I think until people anoint us and tell us that we're leaders, sometimes it's hard for us to see us that way.
But you can see it now.
I can see it now.
I can see it now.
And I look back and I think he was probably trying to reach me back then too. I see so many things in a different way. I feel now more connected to my Jewish roots than I've ever felt before. I read the Old Testament.
I know.
I used to sit in temple and not understand what was being discussed. And now, God picked Jesus to come here as a Jewish man. I feel so connected to the Lord. Then something spiritual happens. It's not a logical choice. It's not, I over intellectualized my journey so much and tried to make sense of it. And I had so many questions. And all of a sudden, what ends up happening when you surrender and give your life to God is that all of a sudden your heart changes completely.
Totally different.
And so it's very hard to then compartmentalize and say, I'll just wear my church clothes one day and act this way. When you actually are fully surrendered, everything changes.
Yeah.
It just naturally flows out because what's on the inside flows out. And so that has been a really interesting journey for anyone who's listening who does have strong faith. And, it's very tempting to just sort of stay in circles, and there's comfort there in knowing that your beliefs align with other people's beliefs. And that is something that we all do in different ways. We feel when we belong, then we gravitate to people that we can see ourselves in, that we can feel psychological safety around talking to. But I would just encourage people who have strong faith to invite others in, ask the Holy Spirit to sort of show you, because I think that once you're saved, you can't be any more saved than you are. You're already saved. And so it's not like by spreading the gospel, we get some sort of extra punch on our card. No. It's not like we're in an MLM and we get some sort of what's the word? Commission. It doesn't work that way. But when your heart is totally transformed and you understand the freedom that comes from having a relationship with our Creator, a personal saving relationship with our Creator, you can't help but want to share that with the people that you love. And so I would just invite people to do that, encourage them to.
God is who he says he is, and I'm going to make this commitment and get baptized.
Yeah. And so I remember at that point in time, I remember thinking my prayer life was basically, God, are you real? Are you real? How do we know it's real? And that was my only prayer. And I literally would say, even if you're not real, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And I made the decision to get baptized. I remember emailing Mike Atkins, our campus pastor. At the time, I'm not ready yet. I am not ready, but I'm sort of considering it.
Can't you imagine him kind of giggling?
Yeah. Never forced me.
No.
He never pushed me. He wasn't preachy.
No. He's the coolest.
He was like, I'm just going to pray that when you're ready, you'll know. And I actually remember I ordered for our kids books, and the books arrived in the mail, and only one of the books was there. And the other book that I did not order was The Case for Christianity. The answers to all the questions you might have about whether or not Jesus was real. I'm not kidding you, Katie. Literally every chapter, it starts out and it's like, do you have questions about whether or not God is real? Good. You should. And guess what? God can handle your question. Here are all the answers to the commonly asked questions you might have. I did not buy that book. And it was not that somebody else sent it to me, because it came in a package that I purchased for our kids with something else that was not about whether or not God is real. And I was like, is this a joke? Okay. I am not even I surrender. So I literally remember emailing Mike Atkins and being like, I surrender. I'm in. And surrender at the time, before I knew God, felt like surrender. Like that's like you're giving up your life.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're actually gaining so much freedom, right? The language is confusing for people. I think it was confusing for me too. And I remember emailing him, and there was a song that was like, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. And that song, every time I hear it, it's basically like, your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. Yep. And I'm ready, to let you in. And I remember emailing him, and I think he responded with yes.
And you can hear it too.
Totally.
You can hear it.
Yep.
He's jumping up and down.
I have always felt so supported at that church and never felt rushed. Frank and I, it was different because he was raised in the Catholic Church.
And that's so different.
So different.
So different.
And we were both kind of people pleasers, and we didn't want to pick one side. So we're like, we're just not going to do religion. Yeah. And Jesus cut through it all.
Yeah.
And so Frank, I think, wasn't as curious because he was like, I know all this stuff. Yeah. Because I learned it in school.
Right.
So I actually think, and maybe he'll correct me if he's listening, But
Yeah,
I
he's
think
listening.
he better be listening.
He's listening.
I think he kind of tuned out stuff early on at the church because in his mind, he knew it and he could repeat the prayers and he felt like, yeah, nailed it. He's a check the list kind of guy,
Yeah.
like check the box. Like I think he was like, yeah, I did this. That's most guys, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I was like, but wait, could this be real? And I wanted to have all these deep existential and like philosophical and theological conversations.
Yeah.
And he was like, why are you bogging me down with all this stuff? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So that was an interesting part in our life. But then there's a sanctification process that happens. And he also, something changed within him. And so we actually got baptized on the same day.
It's amazing.
It's really amazing.
And then God moved again.
He never stops working.
And he moved in one of the best ways ever, in one of my favorite ways he moved for you.
Yeah.
And tell us about what he did there.
So my entire training is secular. And at a certain point, my heart started to belong to the Lord. And then my heart does belong to the Lord. And so I actually started having somewhat of a hard time with coaching because coaching is all about getting to the root of your not enoughness story that all of us have. All of us have, if you give yourself permission, because if you're listening and you're like, I don't have a not enoughness story, you probably do. And it's probably been buried deep inside. And everyone has this story that they tell themselves about who they are. And it usually is rooted in some sort of, I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not popular enough. I'm not capable enough. There's some sort of story there. And so the idea of coaching is to surface your not enoughness story, all of the limiting beliefs that are formed around it, and all of the patterns that are formed around it. Because if you think that you are not enough in some area of your life, you have one of two choices. You either hide because you're not enough. And
right.
so you don't want people to notice that you're not enough.
Right.
I didn't want to speak up in meetings because I didn't want people to notice that I was not able to form a sentence coherently. And I didn't want to. So you either hide and keep yourself boxed in or you overcompensate.
Yeah.
And you think, well, I'm not enough. So I need to overfunction and overperform so that people don't find out that I'm not enough and to be able to keep up with everybody else. And so I kept seeing these patterns in the lawyers that I was coaching, and they all present in different ways. But the goal of coaching is to isolate your not enoughness story, externalize it, be able to understand where it came from, and then be able to say, you created this story and all of these patterns because you were a child and you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And that formed your basis for the world. But actually, you are enough. And everything inside of you is all that you need to be enough. And it's a very empowering ideology, but it doesn't align with my faith. Because I actually think that the most empowering place to be in is I am actually not enough on my own.
I can't be enough on my own.
I can't be enough on my own.
Mm-mm.
I was not designed to be enough on my own. And so it's not just this mindset management framework where you're like, oh, let me put a little less pressure on myself. You literally invite into you the spirit that is so powerful and will sustain you and will give you peace that surpasses all understanding.
Yep.
And so I was actually really I was struggling with reconciling my coaching with my faith. And I wasn't working in this contract way, but I still had one-off coaching.
Right.
And so a couple of other coaches and I decided, let's do this. Let's create a curriculum for lawyers. And this way and it wasn't for the same reasons. The coaches that I was working with, they all had different reasons for why they wanted to be part of this. And we called it Level Up Legal. And it was all about how to level up your energy. And it was the first time I had ever been part of a curriculum that really helped people gain a front row seat into the inner workings of their mind and understand why they think the things they do, the patterns that they have for themselves. And a lot of it dated back to their childhood. And so we went on this journey, and in my mind, I thought, well, this will be a great way to have some sort of way to continue to serve lawyers. And I do genuinely believe that I was serving the lawyers that I was working with. It didn't feel out of alignment, meaning that I was tricking them in any way. I actually think that it served an amazing purpose. But growth apart from God only will take you so far.
Yeah.
And you'll keep hitting a wall and wondering why things are so hard because we weren't designed to do life
By
without
ourselves.
him. So anyway, we worked on this curriculum. And while we were working on this curriculum, I kept thinking, why don't they just teach this stuff in school? Why are we waiting until adults are older or until kids are in some sort of a therapy program to learn how to manage their thoughts, how to not get stuck in their emotions, but move through their emotions? And there's so much basis within scripture for this as well. So why isn't this taught at the church? Why isn't this, or in the church? Why isn't this taught at school? And I kept hearing myself say it over and over and over again, because the longer you hold on to something, the heavier it becomes. I remember sitting down at the computer. I don't like writing, by the way. Cannot stand writing. And this 4-page proposal just flows out of me about creating a coaching program for teenagers. It wasn't just for girls, actually. It was for teenagers.
Okay.
And I thought, well, maybe I can do this at our kids' school. And they go all the way up to 12th grade. And so I pitched it to the school. I thought I would do it. I wouldn't even ask for payment. Like, I would just try to equip teenage students with this. And essentially they said, maybe in the future, but not right now. And I couldn't shake it. Have you ever had a thought or like it's probably like the podcast where you're like, you couldn't stop thinking about it. I could not stop thinking about it. It was not a rational choice. I did have some experience when I was going through my therapy training with youth, but it was not a rational decision. I don't have teenagers myself, but I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I was in my first Bible study. We did Seamless, and everybody in our neighborhood pulled out their Bibles, study guides, and everybody's study guide was white, except my friend to the right of me. Her study guide was pink. And as soon as she realized hers was different than everybody else's, she was like, oh no, I think I got the wrong study guide. And I looked closer at it, and it said teen girl version. And I thought, I don't think you made an accident at all. I think you were supposed to bring this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I thought, okay, well, maybe I can do a Bible study with these.
Yeah.
And so instead of going to the school, I actually went to Mike Atkins, our pastor, and I said, do you think I would be able to facilitate a Bible study with teenagers? And he was extremely gracious about the process. And so I did. And so I met every week over the summer. This was in 2023 with 4 girls, and I loved it. And I actually felt like it was a mix of coaching and Bible study. So for example, we talked about Adam and Eve being tempted. And when have you ever been tempted? And the girls opened up.
Yeah.
They deepened connections with each other. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I then could not stop thinking about that I'm supposed to do this. And so it was that summer, the summer of the Bible study, that I was with a friend, and I just started talking about how I am doing this Bible study with girls. I really would love to do it at the school. I'm not sure if they're open to it. And I just kept going on and on and on. It was like an out-of-body experience. And her face lit up, and she said, you have to meet Jenny. She runs a program called Shine Teen. And I said, great. And then that was it. Jenny started this program for teenage girls, 19, which is the year we moved here. She's a coach. She noticed the same thing that you noticed, which is that the adults that she was coaching had a gap in foundational skills that if they didn't have that gap, they would be able to navigate life more easily.
Yeah.
And with more resilience. And it was all about managing emotions and peer pressure and having a safe space for girls to come together where they're not tearing each other apart and comparing themselves to each other, but they're lifting each other up and they're seeing the best within themselves and each other. And because of that, they shine bright, and she calls it Shine. And she has been doing this since 2019, and she has been praying that somebody else would step in and take it over because she is moving to the beach. And that was always her plan. She has one son. He was going to college. As soon as he moves to college, or as soon as he transitions to college, they were going to sell their house, move to the beach. She would have geographical freedom. That was always her dream. So we
Unlocks Jules.
Yeah. So we met and at Panera. She was sitting there, and when you just meet somebody and feel like they are just radiating.
I have no idea what that's like.
And that is exactly how I felt. And I sat down, and this woman with this Southern accent,
So cute.
and this just heart of gold, like you could just,
Yeah.
it just pours out of her. And we just started talking about how she noticed this need and didn't want to overcomplicate it with a business. And so she just invited these girls over to her burial house, and she prayed over that house every single day as it was being built, that the Lord would use it in a way that aligns with his will. It did. It was a sanctified space. And she invited girls into that space, and she thought that she would just walk alongside girls and she would pour into them until her son goes to college. And then the girls kept coming, and they kept telling their friends, and they kept coming. Hundreds of girls, not all at once, but girls
Throughout
kept
the
coming.
years.
She thought she would end it when she moved to the beach, but she was like, this is too good. We can't stop this. And so she had been praying that somebody would take it over. And this is not a business decision. This is very much, it was a passion project. She never made any money on this.
Nope.
She generously gave of her time and gave of her finances and whatever resources that she had to pour into these girls. And when we met, I said, I'm in, because I don't think this is bigger than I am. I think God put this on your heart, started it with you, and now he's continuing it with me. And we sat there and we cried, and we're like, we're in. It was such an illogical decision in terms of, I didn't really understand the commitment. I didn't really understand what I was doing. I just felt like an instrument, and I wanted to be part of what was going on. And I felt like it wasn't a coincidence. I felt like being there was providential. At that point, I learned to trust in the Lord with all of my heart. And I said, I'm in. I said, well, this really should be a nonprofit, because there's a lot of stuff. I just work with too many lawyers to listen to everything that was going on and be like, there's not an entity around this.
Yeah.
And so she said, I never wanted to do that because I never felt that I was called to do that. But I think you're supposed to take this to the next level.
Yeah.
And do whatever it is that you feel called to do. There was this immediate trust that we both developed with each other, kind of like you and I. So I went back and wrote a proposal to get pro bono legal services, because Jenny would charge $10 for an event to just cover pizza and crafts. I mean, and then cover her with her own budget, would cover dessert and things like that. So I know that legal work is very expensive. I know that you can do it on your own. I know that you can go to LegalZoom and create a nonprofit, but I think the closer you are to God, the more your desires and your thoughts align with the plans he has for you. And I very much felt like I was supposed to be working with a law firm. And so I wrote this proposal. Somehow it got picked up by the director of pro bono legal services in all of North Carolina, who was the most lovely human.
Yeah.
And who said that her daughter had been part of a program like this, and they didn't have funding to continue. And so in a way, it almost seemed redemptive for her to be involved in this. And she reached out to another lawyer, or maybe many lawyers, I don't know, but we got paired with pro bono legal services, and our lawyer is incredible, and they turned us into a nonprofit. So I'm curious, what about Shine, as the mom of teenage girls? What about Shine was alluring to you?
You?
I feel like we're on a date.
Yeah, I know. You were. You could be like, we're going to go jump out of an airplane. I'd be like, okay, if that's what you think we should do.
Never in a million years.
Remember you said that though?
As a joke.
I know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because of the connection that we had.
Yeah.
That was also not of this world.
But when I saw it on Instagram, it just really reminded me so much of Erica's Lighthouse, which is the organization that I was part of in the Chicagoland area. And in Erica's Lighthouse, we, not me, but they created a curriculum that was geared towards specifically depression and education. When Erica had taken her life, she had all of the resources. She had amazing parents. She had anything that she needed in terms of therapy. And there just wasn't enough information out there. And so what her parents decided to start after she had passed away was Erica's Lighthouse, a beacon of hope, so that people could get the information that they need. And it was also to destigmatize mental health in general, because there's so much stigma around it. And obviously that really resonated in me because of my experience with anxiety. And I thought, again, like I was thinking, like, okay, I made this. I definitely still had anxiety at this time. I only had 2 girls, and I still was like, I made this promise. I made this promise. I need to do something. And so I joined Erica's Lighthouse. When I saw Shine, I was like, this is so similar, but also this is something I wish I had when I was in high school or middle school. Like I didn't know any of this stuff. I mean, even my mom is like, this would have been nice,
Absolutely.
50 years ago. And so it's not something they learn in school or church or temple or anywhere. I mean, it's something that's so logical, and it's something that should be the first thing that we all learn about, men and women, girls and boys. So we don't need to fix our adult selves with our like child inside, trying to fix that child inside. And I knew the minute that I started reading about it, I was like, my girls have to be involved in this in some capacity, because every single girl, every single young girl is struggling. How are you supposed to know how to navigate friendships? How are you supposed to know how to navigate school and being, and on top of that, like being a Christian and navigating friendships and school and all the things that are happening
within culture
and your body and everything in culture, and what's the right thing to do. And us as parents, without not also having those skills, aren't equipped necessarily to give them the tools to get through it and be happy. So Shine, to me, when I saw it that night, was immediate. I was like, okay, we have to get involved. And then all of a sudden, like, there you are. The amount of girls that have joined throughout the year since 2019 is like insane. All the people that have been touched by this passion project that turned into a purpose. And here you are taking it and bringing even more girls in. And all of these girls are talking about it to their friends. And so I don't really think that we quite understand the magnitude of how this will touch so many people's lives, and how, like, not just girls, but their parents. And then as they get older and they start having kids, their kids. So you're instilling these tools into these girls that we won't even see the magnitude of where it reached until we go to heaven. And I think that is immediately what drew me to Shine.
Yeah.
And the girls love it.
Hearing that.
Yeah.
It's because it's so aligned with the vision that I have. Light is meant to spread. And so when you start to shine from the inside out, it's not just about like, hey, look how bright and shiny I am. And it's not about who has the clothes or the car or the status or any of that. It's this glow that truly comes from within. And what everybody that you see that has that glow, it's available to you too.
Yeah.
You just have to let that in and sort of learn to relinquish some control, because we very much think that we know what will make us happy and bring us joy. And I think part of it is going back to our design. And the thing that there's an important distinction that I just want to make, which is that Shine is the Shine events that we have each month. So we meet every month and we talk about different topics that are very relevant to a teenager. So, for example, in January, we reflected on last year and came up with inspiration for this year so that we could align our thoughts with our vision and make intentional choices every single day. And in February, we had an event that was focused on communication because so often we don't really listen. We just wait to speak next or think about how we can connect to what the other person is saying, or we hear our child come to us with all of these problems and right away we don't want to see them upset, so we try to solve their problem for them instead of really listening. And so the idea is every month there's a different topic that the girls are learning about, and they are not explicitly faith oriented topics. And so it's not that you come to a Shine event and the idea is that we are sitting down, reading the Bible, talking about how Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. However, what ended up happening, and so Jenny actually, who is a believer as well, she felt very early on, she thought, well, maybe this will be a ministry. And she felt, though, soon after, no, it's meant to reach everyone. It's meant to be whichever girl would like to come into an environment like this, internalizes the values of being kind to each other, being authentic, lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down, they should be invited. So it was not explicitly faith oriented. However, as we've been talking about, what's on the inside flows out. And so when your heart belongs to the Lord, it's going to come out. Yeah. Jenny would say, you will hear me talk from time to time about my faith. And I personally feel like this really helped me put things into perspective. When we were early on at church, there was this big light bulb that they rolled on stage, and the light bulb had all of the pieces within it to function. And until it was plugged in and connected to the source, it didn't shine. And so I very much feel like God is a big part of this. And that's what I believe. However, does it mean that you can't also learn about how to communicate with each other and all of these other personal development skills? No, you can still learn about all of those different things, but what's on the inside does come out. And so in the context of Jenny having these personal development conversations, she would reference her relationship with the Lord, whereas it's culturally normative in New York to glorify the grind and work all the time. Yeah. And I had straight A's and, my grades were everything. Your job, your title is everything. Here, it's culturally normative to wear a cross. And because maybe it was passed down to you, but maybe you have no idea what that cross even means. Right. And for me, it was such a big wrestling of, am I actually going to be wearing a cross? Yeah. That's a big deal for me. And so girls, when they started to see Jenny's faith, they started asking questions. And Jenny knew that there were girls in the room who didn't believe, and that didn't feel like it was her place to start sort of sharing the gospel right there while they were, eating ice cream, talking about bullies. Right. And so she started Shine Faith. And so this way, that would be a space where girls could come together with a Judeo-Christian worldview and talk about how the Bible calls us to be, and our relationship, developing an authentic relationship with the Lord. And the idea was to dig into scripture and think about how all of these forces in the world are so loud. Yeah. And are telling you how you're supposed to be and destabilizing your image. And Shine Faith is about, who does God say you are? Yeah. And when you have that knowing, you radiate more brightly. I don't know what's going to happen next, but what I do know is that recently when I posted about Shine, I got all these messages like, I wish we had this in South Carolina. I wish we had this in Delaware. I wish we had this somewhere else. And maybe that can happen. I don't know. I'm just a vessel. I think that your writing curriculum, even though it didn't go very far, was just like a test drive for you so that you could write curriculum and you know what you're doing and it wouldn't feel so overwhelming and like you've never done it before. And now God gave you this tool to be able to do that. And who knows, maybe this will turn into that. It certainly can. You already know, you've seen it. You've seen Erica's Lighthouse. You've seen that it can absolutely be replicated. And like Erica's Lighthouse is all over the world. And there's a map on their website where you can see all the people that have downloaded the curriculum all over the world.
Russia, Asia, like everywhere. It's just like the beginning. And it's so the beginning. It's so the beginning.
It is. And it very much has been, I am just a mom with 2 kids who is trying to sort of figure this all out. And I very often come across to people that don't know me. Like I've got it all together and I have this game plan, and it hasn't been easy. And it hasn't been, just this, okay, I have a game plan. I know exactly what I'm doing. I have had so many times where I've been like,
what am I doing?
What am I doing? And also, like, I kind of just want to go back to having a job where I have a steady paycheck. I've never made a single dollar on this.
Mhm.
And maybe there would be safety in me going back into the corporate world and using gifts elsewhere. But I know my soul knows it so well that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I know very well that you are supposed to be on this journey. I literally thank God every single day for you, because doing this on my own with my family, I will also say my husband has been incredible.
Rock.
He has been such a rock. I'm spending Saturdays pouring into other kids that are not our own. And it's not a logical choice, but he also has just, boots on the ground, getting things assembled. He's been so helpful. Our kids are, my daughter, 5.5, is saying things like step into courage. And like I'm seeing her learn things that we say at Shine. There was a day that I thought, I'm not doing this. I'm quitting. I don't need this. And my son started crying and said, Mommy, this is what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, my family has coalesced around me in the most incredible way. And truly, I am so grateful for you standing beside me and holding me up in moments when it's been really hard. And I'm grateful that God has made that so clear and so easy, because he didn't have to. But even down to, talking about God wings, I have been through a season of refinement in fire, and fire is hot, and it hasn't been easy. And literally during a day when things were really rough and I was just having a hard day, and I opened up our brand new email account, which says it's a nonprofit email account. And so it's jules@shineteens.org if you want to email me. And I open it up and it says, and I don't usually even open marketing.
It was like junk mail. It was like marketing junk mail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I open it up and it said, see how other nonprofits are using Google Nonprofits account. Today, we're going to spotlight Erica's Lighthouse with a picture of Erica's Lighthouse, as if I needed any affirmation. I mean, I don't need any affirmation. You have been so supportive. It would be so easy for you to come in here and to not be supportive, or to just say, okay, she's doing her thing, I'll do my thing, I'll support her from afar, or whatever it might be. Or I mean, it would be very easy to do a lot of different things, but you have stayed by me while this has not been easy. You have seen me at points when I was flustered and overwhelmed and said, how can I help? I can do this. Can I do this? And you have just made it like, I feel like you have held my hand, and you are truly a gift from above. I am so grateful. Everybody needs a friend like this that you can talk openly with and lean on. And I think there are friends out there like this for everyone. And if you have one, hold on so tightly, because it's so special.
I feel the exact same way about you. Like I said earlier, this is just completely divinely orchestrated. And what do you always say? Like, we're woven into
a beautiful tapestry.
Yeah, that God has made. And we wouldn't even be doing this right now.
Right. What would we do?
I don't know.
A random Wednesday.
I don't know.
Something that is not connected to a higher purpose.
No.
Something that feels good in the moment, maybe.
Yeah.
Something that feels like it has value in the moment, but not something that has the potential to have this ripple effect and really, really change the course of girls' lives.
Completely.
And we're just getting started in so many ways. We are developing the infrastructure, and there are going to be so many opportunities for women to come in and volunteer. And I mean, sky's the limit.
Anyone's out there.
Yeah.
That feels called.
Jules@shineteens.org. I think the other thing that's been incredible that is really just a testament to the fact that we are just instruments in something that is so much bigger than we are, is that right when all of this started, it was like, okay, you're going to step in. Wouldn't it be amazing to have new branding? Because when I was running a support group for girls in a therapy practice, the girls would leave because of the stigma that you referenced, and they would have these great conversations, and then they would leave and they would say, well, I don't want anyone to know that I was part of this conversation because I'll get judged. I'll be made fun of. And I also think that it wasn't as normalized in culture to talk about mental health back then. But I remember when I stepped into this, I thought I would love for girls to be really proud that they're part of this community. I would love for them to organically, I love organic things, organically just talk about the impact Shine has had on them and not have to spend all this money on marketing and branding, and just for it to be that the girls are like ambassadors because they had such a great experience. They're going to talk to their friends, and then not just to bring other girls in, but to also open up conversations. And they say, oh yeah, this weekend I went to a Shine event. I learned about I've been holding on to this resentment for a long time. I've been holding on to unforgiveness with a friend, and it's weighing me down. And I realize that it's putting me in a bad mood. And now I have skills to learn how to get through that. I would love for them to say that, and then for that to invite other conversation. And so right when this all started, someone from our church who was just another gift from the Lord, who was a graphic designer, reached out and she said, I would love to rebrand, or I forget how it actually started. But essentially she was like, what do you do? And I was like, well, I run this community, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think it would be cool one day to collaborate. Fast forward, she worked on our entire rebrand completely free of charge.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. She actually designed, I don't know if anyone can see,
oh my gosh,
journal that I have. She has an incredible testimony, and she rebranded everything for us. The girls love the branding now. Then our worship leader at the time was writing custom songs. And so he wrote us a custom song, and it was just all of these different. Our pastor's wife was like, you should think about doing self-defense courses for the girls because that's so empowering. And I am a self-defense instructor. And then now we're having self-defense classes. It's like everything is just falling into place. And I just needed to have the eyes to see it. And now it's really, I never want to get lost in the mundane and the day-to-day stuff and lose out on the magic that's happening here.
Wow, what an incredible conversation today. I knew this episode would be special, but Jules has a way of making every moment feel even more meaningful. Her passion, wisdom, and the light she brings to Shine Teens and beyond is truly inspiring. Jules, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, and your mission with us. I'm so grateful for you and for the work you're doing to empower the next generation. And to all of you listening, thank you for being here. Keep shining, keep spreading light, and I'll see you next time on Invisible Strings. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Invisible Strings, where we've tugged at a few threads and hopefully left you with a smile and something to think about. Remember, life's connections might be invisible, but they're oh so strong. If you enjoyed today's chat, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little string pulling in their life. Until next time, keep those invisible strings intact, and I'll see you back here soon for more heartfelt conversations and a dash of fun. Stay connected, stay kind, and keep untangling.